Hi, my name is Tony Preston. I'm here to talk about ice and stretch today. Ice and stretch is a specific type of therapy not to be confused with the traditional icing that your therapist might give you where you put an ice pack on for 15 minutes or ice plunging. Those therapies do something different and this is not made to replace them. Ice and stretch is a little game we play with the nervous system based on a couple of physiological principles that in short, say that if we apply a little hot or cold to the skin, it blocks the pain response created by trigger points, and we can do stretching much more quickly and with less irritation than normal. So we can go through a stretch routine very quickly. The only downside is you need a little bit of ice with you, and sometimes the ice touching your skin is a little bit intense, but that offers us a good shortcut. So let's talk about that specifically and look at my ranges of motion and where I have some pain right now. I've had some congestion lately. I've got a trigger point here that seems to fire up through the side of my head and into this eye. That comes out of the top part of the splenius cervicis muscle, and there's some restriction down here at the base of my neck. As a neuromuscular therapist, it's interesting to note where the actual muscles are that produce those referrals because oftentimes the pain and restriction is not where the trigger point is. As somebody at home, you don't need to know all that. You can simply run through basic ranges of motion and see how your neck works, and then stroke the areas that are restricted to produce better range of motion, and you'll often get rid of most of the pain, or if not all of the pain. So let's look at that. If I turn my head this way and I lift this jaw toward the ceiling, kind of like Aaron Mattis's active isolated stretching routine, I can feel that there's some restriction here in my neck. If I turn it this way, I first of all find that the turning is more restricted. There's some pain and restriction in here. And if I go to lift this, I get some pain back here in my head, and I also get some more pain here in the base of my neck. So what I'd like to do is to do some basic icing around my neck and see how that works. When I'm in my office, I will take a small Dixie cup like this and fill it up with ice. I fill it up with water and freeze it so I have a bigger ice cube to work with that lasts longer. I might also use a hot stone instead of an ice cube just because some people would prefer the heat over the ice when I'm working. Of course, you have to have a hot stone machine in order to do that, and you have to understand how to use hot stones. So let's look at my range of motion again. This is restricted. This not so much. Little restriction there, good bit of restriction there. So let's take this piece of ice and just start here and work this front side of my neck, including the sternocleidomastoid, which is this big muscle here that runs up behind my ear and down to my collarbone. I'm using a washcloth with this because it dries the skin as I go. For some reason that seems to make the process more effective. I'm going to do 3 or 4 ranges of motion like Aaron Mattis's active isolated stretching. Okay, now I'm going to turn it the other way and take that ice cube and run here. This is just an ice cube out of an ice tray like you might have at home. Okay, so I've done that sternocleidomastoid in that area, and now I'm going to take and do 3 or 4 stretches, and immediately I get much better range of motion here. Let's see, if I do this, this works much better. If I go here, I get further. I don't have so much pain down here. I now have pain up in the middle of my neck here. So the next thing that I'm going to do is just work the occipital ridge, the base of my head here in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and put some ice along that area. Okay. It's important that the ice is a little bit shocking to your skin. If it's not as effective. Now I'm going to take and stretch that. Notice how I don't bend at the base of my neck, but I try to keep the base of my neck straight, and I tuck my chin. I can turn and do this. Same thing. And then over here. This one's a little more restricted on this side, which is interesting because my pain was there too. Now let's look at my range of motion again. This is pretty good. This is better. My pain is still here. The sharp pain in the middle is gone, and now it's just back to the little focus down here at the base of my neck. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of ice there, right at the base of my neck. Now I'm going to take my head and stretch it this way, just kind of stretching right through that section of my neck. I can feel that it lets go pretty quickly. Again, I only do 3 or 4 stretches there. That's plenty for this. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. This is nice. I can feel this stuff turning loose. My head feels clearer. I have a good bit less pain from the headache. Okay, now let's look at ranges of motion. This feels good. I had a little joint movement there. This feels pretty good too. I still have a little bit down here in the base of my shoulder. So I'm going to take and do a little bit more icing in that area to turn that loose. Got myself another ice cube as that first ice cube is gone, and that's why I use ice cups in my office. Okay, I'm going to work what you therapists would know as the levator scapula area up the side of my neck, from that top corner of the shoulder blade up to the top 3 or 4 vertebrae. I'm going to take this over. I give a little bit of crunching and range of motion as I go through those ranges of motion. I'm going to go ahead and do this other side as well. Hopefully I'll hold on to this ice cube. There we go. And this is pretty shocking, especially down there at the base near the top corner of my scapula. Okay. Well, there was a good size joint movement, which always loosens things up. Nice range of motion here. Good range of motion here, and now this restriction down here is completely gone. This headache is gone. The only thing I have left is, now that I've gotten rid of all of that, I can feel some stuff around this eye. I happen to know that that comes off of my sternocleidomastoid muscle, which is this big muscle here in the neck. So I'm going to go ahead and take this ice cube and run that muscle, get up here where it attaches at the base of my head, run all the way down to where it attaches on my collarbone. It's less shocking now because I've hit this with a couple of pieces of ice, but it still seems cold, which means it's effective. And this is the stretch for sternocleidomastoid, where I try to take my chin and turn it past that shoulder. That has just gotten rid of so much of the restriction down here in this corner and in turning my head in that direction. I'm going to go ahead and get up here behind my ear along the base of my head there and hit this sternocleidomastoid. Take that muscle all the way down to the collarbone. Okay, now I've iced that area. I'm going to turn it 3 or 4 times this way. This all feels pretty good now. This kind of shadow of pain I had around this eye is gone. This is gone. I've got good range of motion here. I've got good range of motion here. All of this seems to work pretty well. So there's a quick routine that lasted me probably 6 or 7 minutes for doing ice and stretch on my neck. I hope that's helpful.